the streets of Caracas, the daily rhythm of life had become a struggle against scarcity, uncertainty, and fear. Families lined up for hours to secure food and water. Hospitals grappled with shortages of medicine and electricity, and millions of Venezuelans contemplated leaving their homeland in search of safety and stability. Beyond these individual hardships, a larger geopolitical confrontation was unfolding, one that would shape the nation's destiny and reverberate across the Americas. The election of Donald Trump in 2016 intensified an already strained relationship between the United States and Venezuela, transforming long-standing ideological and political tensions into a high-stakes confrontation. Through sweeping sanctions, diplomatic maneuvers, and international coalition building, the Trump administration sought to pressure Nicolás Maduro's government and elevate opposition voices, while Caracas mobilized its domestic apparatus and strategic alliances to resist what it framed as an existential threat to sovereignty. The resulting conflict would test the limits of coercive diplomacy, reshape regional dynamics, and leave a profound human and economic toll. The confrontation between the Trump administration and Venezuela's government represents one of the most consequential episodes of US-Latin American relations in the early 21st century. It was a clash defined not only by opposing political ideologies, but also by economic necessity, strategic calculations, and the survival of national identity. Deep-seated enmity between the two states, cultivated over decades of antagonistic rhetoric and mutual suspicion, became manifest under Donald Trump's presidency through a maximum pressure campaign of sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and international maneuvering. At the same time, Venezuela's government, led by Nicolás Maduro, demonstrated a remarkable capacity for resilience and adaptation, mobilizing domestic and foreign resources to resist what it portrayed as an existential threat. The conflict unfolded across multiple arenas: political, economic, humanitarian, and military, leaving millions of Venezuelans to endure the human consequences and reshaping the geopolitical landscape of Latin America. The roots of this conflict extend back to the rise of Hugo Chavez and the Bolivarian Revolution at the turn of the millennium. Chavez's program of socialist reform and resource nationalism directly challenged US influence in the hemisphere, promoting alliances with nations outside the Western sphere of power, including Cuba, Iran, and Russia. Chavez framed US criticism and sanctions as evidence of imperialist interference, portraying Washington as a force intent on undermining Venezuelan sovereignty. This rhetoric, combined with domestic policies that centralize power and reshape social and economic structures, established a pattern of antagonism that persisted under Maduro. By 2013, when Maduro succeeded Chavez, Venezuela was already struggling with economic contraction, rising inflation, and political polarization. The government faced protests and unrest, while public institutions experienced strain under the pressures of governance and factional politics. Relations with the United States were tense, but had not yet reached the heightened confrontation that would characterize the Trump era. The election of Donald Trump in 2016, with his unapologetically assertive foreign policy stance, accelerated the escalation of hostilities. Trump's approach emphasized coercion and leverage, signaling an unprecedented willingness to employ economic and diplomatic tools to challenge Maduro's authority. President Trump's strategy toward Venezuela relied on what the administration termed maximum pressure, a comprehensive approach designed to compel regime change without direct military intervention. The policy combined economic sanctions, diplomatic maneuvers, and international coalition building. In 2017, Trump declared a national emergency regarding Venezuela, effectively blocking American banks and investors from providing credit to the Maduro government or its state-owned oil company, PDVSA. These measures aim to cut off hard currency and limit the government's ability to fund its operations, but they also accelerated the collapse of an already fragile economy. The sanctions intensified in 2019 when the United States blacklisted PDVSA entirely, froze billions in Venezuelan assets, and blocked oil exports to the US. These measures were intended to isolate Maduro financially and force political concessions. At the same time, the Trump administration publicly considered military intervention, repeatedly emphasizing that all options were on the table. Though no direct military action occurred, the persistent threats heightened tension and reinforced Caracas's narrative of resisting foreign aggression. Simultaneously, the United States recognized Juan Guaidó, leader of Venezuela's National Assembly, as interim president, thereby legitimizing the opposition on the international stage. This move created a dual-power scenario in which Maduro controlled domestic institutions and the military, while Guaidó commanded international recognition and diplomatic support. The administration further escalated pressure through legal means, indicting Maduro and senior officials on charges of narco-terrorism and offering substantial rewards for their capture. These actions restricted the Venezuelan leadership's mobility and symbolized the extreme lengths to which the US would go to pursue regime change. Venezuela's government responded to US pressure with a combination of defiance, strategic adaptation, and alliance building. Maduro's administration framed sanctions as illegal economic warfare aimed at strangling the nation and undermining the revolution. Internally, the government strengthened control over dissent, consolidated military loyalty, and utilized loyalist militias to suppress opposition activity. Leaders of the National Assembly who aligned with Guaidó faced arrests, loss of political rights, or exile, demonstrating the government's determination to maintain domestic control in the face of external pressure. Externally, Venezuela reinforced its alliances with countries willing to defy US influence, including Russia, China, Cuba, and Iran. These nations provided critical financial support, technical expertise, and diplomatic backing, enabling Caracas to circumvent sanctions and sustain economic operations. Russian military assistance and Chinese financing helped offset the economic squeeze, while Cuba provided intelligence and security cooperation in exchange for subsidized oil shipments. By cultivating these relationships, Venezuela presented the conflict as a geopolitical struggle against imperialism rather than a purely domestic political crisis, reinforcing the government's narrative of sovereignty and resistance. While the political and diplomatic confrontation unfolded on international stages, ordinary Venezuelans faced the profound consequences of the conflict. Hyperinflation and economic collapse made basic necessities, food, medicine, electricity, scarce. Citizens spent hours lining up for subsidized food or water, often under the threat of harassment or theft. Hospitals struggled with power outages and shortages of essential supplies, forcing doctors to improvise in the face of collapsing infrastructure. Schools closed intermittently due to insecurity or lack of resources, and public transportation became unreliable, amplifying daily hardships. Families relied on remittances from relatives abroad, while local markets became arenas of negotiation and survival rather than commerce. The mass migration of Venezuelans became a visible sign of the human toll. Millions fled to neighboring countries, creating overburdened refugee communities in Colombia, Brazil, Peru, and beyond. border towns became microcosms of displacement, with crowded shelters, makeshift housing, and informal economies emerging as migrants sought safety and sustenance. The flow of people-strained resources generated political tension and reshaped demographic patterns across the region. Each crossing, each attempt to find work or stability, became part of the broader narrative of the Venezuelan crisis, underscoring the tangible impact of the geopolitical conflict on individual lives. Several critical events defined the confrontation during Trump's presidency. The May 2018 presidential election, widely denounced as fraudulent, cemented Maduro's second term, while provoking Guaido's claim to interim power in January 2019. The subsequent dual power dynamic created a prolonged stalemate, with competing claims to legitimacy at home and abroad. The humanitarian aid crisis of February 2019 became a dramatic flashpoint. Trucks carrying international aid, including food and medical supplies, were blocked at the borders with Colombia and Brazil. Venezuelan security forces fired tear gas, used rubber bullets, and set some shipments ablaze, resulting in injuries and deaths. The confrontation illustrated how political conflict could directly impact human lives, reinforcing perceptions of both external coercion and internal repression. In May 2020, Operation Gideon, a failed mercenary incursion, further inflamed tensions. The small armed group attempted to capture or assassinate Maduro, but Venezuelan forces thwarted the operation. Though the United States denied involvement, Maduro used the event to justify increased security measures, framed the United States as a hostile actor, and rallied domestic support. The episode highlighted the intersection of international intrigue, domestic politics, and media narratives in shaping the perception of conflict. Throughout 2019 and 2020, the Trump administration continued to expand sanctions, targeting foreign companies and governments doing business with Venezuela. Venezuela responded by deepening strategic alliances, seeking alternative trade routes, and asserting its sovereignty through legal and economic measures. Regional organizations became arenas of contestation, with the US-led Lima Group coordinating opposition to Maduro, while Venezuela denounced neighboring governments aligned with Washington as proxies of imperialist influence. The economic collapse and humanitarian crisis reached unprecedented levels during Trump's presidency. GDP contracted sharply, hyperinflation soared, and essential services, including electricity, water, and healthcare, deteriorated. Millions of Venezuelans faced malnutrition, lack of medical care, and insecure living conditions. Basic goods were scarce and expensive, and informal markets became essential for survival. The refugee crisis strained neighboring countries' resources, creating regional tensions and highlighting the transnational dimension of the conflict. While US sanctions exacerbated economic suffering, Venezuela's internal mismanagement and corruption also contributed. The population bore the brunt of the crisis, navigating daily life amid shortages, insecurity, and uncertainty. The conflict became a defining feature of Venezuelan society, shaping not only economic and political realities, but also social structures and personal experiences. By the end of Trump's term, the conflict had reshaped regional and global dynamics. Maduro retained power, supported by the military and allies such as Russia, China, and Cuba, while Guaido's recognition persisted abroad but lacked practical influence on the ground. The Biden administration inherited the standoff, maintaining sanctions but signaling willingness to negotiate conditional relief. Limited easing of restrictions in exchange for political concessions marked a shift from the Trump-era strategy, though enmity and distrust remained entrenched. Venezuela leveraged its alliances to mitigate the impact of US pressure, developing economic partnerships with non-Western nations and asserting its sovereignty. The conflict underscored the limits of coercive diplomacy when faced with resilient domestic governance and supportive international networks. As the Trump administration's policies pressed Venezuela into a deeper crisis, the interplay between external pressure and internal resilience became increasingly evident. The economic blockade, sanctions, and diplomatic isolation intensified hardships for ordinary Venezuelans, while simultaneously reinforcing Maduro's narrative of sovereignty and resistance. Regional alliances were tested. International attention was drawn to the unfolding humanitarian emergency, and domestic opposition struggled to translate global recognition into tangible power. This convergence of domestic and foreign dynamics set the stage for a prolonged stalemate, demonstrating that the conflict was not simply a bilateral dispute, but a complex, multi-layered struggle with profound political, economic, and human consequences. In this context, the crisis evolved beyond immediate policy objectives, leaving enduring effects that would shape the trajectory of Venezuela and its relations with the United States for years to come. As the conflict persisted, Venezuela's internal political climate evolved into a landscape marked by constant vigilance and shifting allegiances. The government's reliance on security forces deepened, strengthening the bond between civilian leadership and military elites. Promotions, economic privileges, and access to state-controlled industries ensured loyalty among senior commanders, while lower-ranking soldiers navigated difficult living conditions similar to those faced by ordinary citizens. This dynamic created a complex structure in which loyalty was maintained not only through ideology, but through necessity, intertwining the fate of the government with that of the armed forces in a way that made external pressure less effective than anticipated. Meanwhile, the opposition struggled to maintain cohesion. The initial wave of unity following Guaido's recognition faded amid strategic disagreements, resource shortages, and fatigue among supporters. Some factions favored continued international pressure, while others sought renewed negotiations, believing that the cost of prolonged confrontation was too high for the population to bear. These internal fractures weakened the opposition's ability to challenge the government effectively, reducing its influence both domestically and across the region. As the political stalemate endured, many Venezuelans viewed the opposition's promises with increasing skepticism, questioning whether either side was capable of delivering the stability the country needed. Internationally, the Venezuelan crisis became a focal point of broader geopolitical competition. Russia expanded its military footprint through training missions and advisory support, strengthening its strategic presence in the Western Hemisphere. China deepened its role through economic partnerships, loan restructuring, and continued involvement in Venezuela's oil and mining sectors. These relationships contrasted sharply with the United States' efforts to isolate Venezuela, demonstrating the extent to which global power dynamics influenced the conflict. For many observers, the Venezuelan crisis became symbolic of a shifting international order in which major powers competed for influence in regions once dominated by a single hegemon. Regional governments also grappled with the implications of the crisis. Neighboring states experienced demographic shifts as migrants settled in urban centers, joined the workforce, or relied on overstretched social services. Governments attempted to balance domestic concerns with humanitarian obligations, navigating public frustration, political debates, and financial limitations. In some countries, the crisis became a catalyst for political change. with parties leveraging public sentiment, either sympathetic or resentful toward Venezuelan migrants, to influence elections. These developments underscored the extent to which the confrontation between the United States and Venezuela extended beyond their borders. Within Venezuela, society adapted in unexpected ways. Local communities developed informal networks to manage shortages, sharing resources, providing mutual assistance, and establishing alternative markets. Digital currencies and barter systems emerged, offering new mechanisms for survival amid economic instability. Families separated by migration remained connected through remittances and communication, creating transnational bonds that shaped household strategies and local economies. Despite the harshness of daily life, these adaptations highlighted the resilience and ingenuity of Venezuelans as they navigated unprecedented challenges. By the time global attention began to shift to new international crises, the conflict between the Trump administration and Venezuela had left an indelible mark on the nation's political consciousness. The period became a reference point for debates about sovereignty, foreign intervention, and the limits of pressure-based diplomacy. For many Venezuelans, the experience reinforced the fragility of political systems under duress and the importance of institutions capable of withstanding economic, ideological, and geopolitical stress. The legacy of this era continued to shape discussions about the future, reflecting a collective desire to move beyond confrontation toward a more stable and inclusive national trajectory. The confrontation between the Trump administration and Venezuela during 2017 to 2021 exemplifies the complex interplay of ideology, strategy, and human consequence. The United States sought to restore democratic governance through sanctions, diplomatic recognition of opposition leadership, and international coalition building, while Venezuela's government successfully resisted through domestic consolidation and strategic alliances. The result was a prolonged crisis, marked by profound humanitarian suffering, economic collapse, and geopolitical realignment. The Trump years intensified enmity, reshaped regional dynamics, and left enduring consequences for both nations. The conflict illustrates how foreign policy, domestic governance, and human resilience intersect in times of international confrontation, leaving legacies that continue to influence relations and the lives of ordinary citizens across borders. Thanks for watching and diving deep into the complex story of US-Venezuelan relations under the Trump administration. If you found this exploration insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an in-depth historical breakdown. Understanding this conflict isn't just about politics. It's about the lives affected, the decisions made behind closed doors, and the ripple effects that stretch across the region and the world. From the human stories of migration and resilience to the geopolitical chessboard involving multiple global powers, Venezuela's struggle under international pressure shows how intertwined domestic governance and foreign policy truly are. In future videos, we'll continue to unpack moments like this, critical historical events that have shaped modern politics and society. If you have questions about any part of the crisis, or if there's a specific event or figure you'd like to see explored in more detail, leave a comment below. Your engagement helps guide these deep dives and allows us to build a fuller picture together. Finally, remember that history is more than dates and policies. It's the story of people navigating challenges, choices, and consequences. By examining these events, we not only understand the past better, but we can also gain insight into the patterns that influence today's world. Thanks for joining this journey, and we'll see you in the next video as we explore another chapter of modern history.